There is no future for people who deny their past. My foreparents, my grandparents.
Welcome to the Final Boss Podcast, your ultimate destination for urban culture, community vibes, and live conversations with the movers and shakers of the streets. Join us as we explore the rhythm of the one beat at a time. Let's get the show started. Turn up the volume, sit back and relax, and welcome to the Final Boss Podcast, hosted by Turbo the CEO, and follow us on all social media platforms.
You're listening to the Final Boss Podcast.
Welcome everyone from around the world. You're at the right place. This is the Final Boss Podcast. Welcome to Tuesday night show. We have an amazing show for you tonight. Episode number 92. 92, man. My correspondent every Tuesday, you see him, the Sensei, Big Mike. Big Mike, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Listen, everyone, thank you for your support. Please continue to support us. Like, share, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you get a chance, send us some stars. We like those too. You know, we're grateful that you're on this journey with us as we continue this experience together to not only better you, but to better us. That's what we're doing. We're 365 full circle. So thank you. Make sure you if you're not DMing us, shoot us an email at info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. That's info@thefinalbosspodcast.com to shoot us an email. Go check out some merch. We're still working on the merch site, but the merch is available. So you get a chance, go check out the merch. The merch site is thefinalbosspodcast.com. One word, thefinalbosspodcast.com. One word. Last week, the other day, had a big heavy show, episode number 91. We talked about a lot of things in there. I had to take off the gloves. I threw some flags. We're gonna throw some flags tonight because this is gonna be one of those episodes. We just throwing the flags. This is what we do. This is how we go get in, right?
A little bit.
So, man, we are excited to be on this journey with you guys. And before we get started, the greeting of the day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to everyone all over the world. It doesn't matter what country, what time, we're here with you. Thank you. So let's get into it. Tonight's brass tacks comes from, I don't have an author for this brass tacks, but it is fitting and it opens the door into tonight's show, episode number 92, DNA, memory, and the human machine. I say again, DNA, memory, and the human machine. You want to know why the human machine is very similar to technology that's out right now. It's tangible stuff. Your laptop, your phone. They have some of the same components, and we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. So tonight's brass tacks. The human body is an incredible machine, but most people only get out of that machine what their mind allows them to. Again, the human body is an incredible machine, but most people only get out of the machine what their mind allows them to. That's tonight's brass tacks, and that's what's going to open up the window, the door to this conversation. Episode number 92. Episode number 92. You know, it's It's a different world right now. And we're going to enter and add to that world. We're going to open up a door to a new realm. I don't know if you can see my air quotes. A new realm where biology meets code. Where biology meets code. Yep, that's where we're going. Where the blueprint meets the machine. Where the blueprint meets the machine. We are setting sail on the path of DNA memory from the very definition of life to the future of technology. The future of technology. It's all connected. I saw something last night doing a deep dive on something that is called QDAR. QDAR is going to be a very interesting technology concept that's in fact already in play. We're going to talk about that, but not tonight. That's for another episode. So look, before we get into it, you want to know how similar are we? You want to know that question. Think about that. Write that down because we're going to talk about it. How similar are we to the machines that we brought into existence? The machines and AI and all these things that we brought into existence that is very similar to human biology. We're going to explore that complexity and the biology in it itself. The machines, the ethical, that's our favorite subject, the ethical implications and societal transformation. That's what we're getting into. So that's to get started with that. Sensei, my main man, you got the floor.
Let's start with what DNA really is, because you hear about it and you're like, what is this stuff? Can you hear me okay?
Turn it up just a tad.
Let me get that mic going. Let me modify the mixer. And let's see if I can get this thing to mix a little bit better.
Okay.
I might disappear for a second.
Good.
While I go into my settings. Is that better?
That's better. That's better.
If I sit a little closer, maybe. All right, just had to sit a little bit closer. I need to probably end up doing a microphone on this thing.
Okay.
Instead of me just talking to my laptop. All right. So let's start with what DNA really is. You hear about it, and you're like, this is confusing. I don't know what it is. It's just a blueprint of life. But it's also a storage mechanism for everything about us. Everything. Think of it as nature's original hard drive. But it's self-replicating, it's encoded, and it's constantly active. So it's alive. So it's like you have a hard drive, but it's alive. Exactly. And it can self-replicate itself.
Right.
So machines work on binary, zeros and ones. Both are forms of memory. We work on biochemical. Okay, so you have the zeros and ones, which is just that's what we have. This is all the code you have written right now, zeros and ones. But we work on biochemical memory. Now, it's a biochemical code. Now, both are forms of memory, but the question is, are we evolving towards understanding ourselves through the technology we create? Or are we recreating ourselves in its image? So it's
great question.
That's perspective. Okay.
Yep.
Are we replicating it, or are we trying to recreate ourselves? So when we talk about decoding DNA, all you're really asking is how to read, modify, and understand the operating system of life. That's it.
Yep.
It's not hard.
Right.
This conversation, it bridges science, technology, even philosophy. And this is where it gets interesting. It gets interesting because you're now talking about the meaning of life. You constantly hear people asking, well, why am I alive? Why am I here? And you have that deep question. Right. Decode your DNA, and the amount of information you can pull out of that is mind-blowing. Have you ever heard of the term generational trauma or generational memory?
Absolutely. We've just touched on that a little bit. But for the smarts and for the final bosses, listen to this.
It's important to know. Okay? Because the fact that your DNA has the ability to pass on all of its information.
Right.
I'm not talking about I pass on the memory of a flower, but I could easily pass on every memory you have. Your entire existence. Every experience you have can be stored. Imagine passing that on by just living.
And to add to that, we are more alike than we are different. Humanity needs to understand that correlation. We are more alike than we are different. It's in our DNA. But thank you, Sensei. Go ahead, man. I didn't want to end. Go.
Oh, no, you're totally good.
Yeah.
You're totally good. So this gets really, really interesting. Because we only think of passing on knowledge to our children by talking to them and by teaching them. We never even think about it that when you share your DNA with somebody else's DNA, you could implicitly pass on your memories.
Right.
Through your DNA to your children.
Yeah.
Because they now are part of you. So it's absolutely fascinating. But this also gets us into where we start talking about a little bit more about the mechanics of it. That rolls us into our next segment of talking about that. So, we're gonna move away from the big picture, and we're gonna delve a little deeper into the mechanics of it. What makes this stuff actually happen?
Right. So, question for you: what's the meaning? What is DNA memory precisely? I have three questions. One, what's the meaning of DNA? What is DNA memory precisely? And how does DNA structure, the double helix, serve as the biological code? How does that all, in that mixing bowl, equate to memory?
So the first thing is you want to know, what is the double helix? So if you've ever seen a picture of DNA, or you want to go look up DNA, it's just a spiral with some ladders in between. Okay, that's called the double helix. So DNA is the original storage system. It encodes instructions for life. So that way, when you have an egg and a sperm that get together, they have everything they need to create a human being. And that's how it can be replicated that easily. Okay. So the storage system encodes instructions for life. Base pairs, they're called A, T, C, and G. Okay. They form the alphabet of this biological code. Every cell carries the same blueprint. Think about that. Every cell in your body carries the same blueprint. So that's like having your operating system backed up across everything. Across everything. DNA is like a hard drive. It's compact, portable, high capacity. You can call it a code repository. It's organized. There's error checking. It's adaptable. It's not just storage. The potential activated by the environment, time, and expression. So it's not just that it's there and it can't be unlocked. All it takes is the right environment and the whole thing just opens up. Wow. Like I said, you create out of two cells, and you create out of an egg and a sperm, a zygote, which becomes a human being, which has all of the instructions it needs to create a human. All of the instructions, everything, to include the hair color, the disposition they have for for any disease that you could have potentially, or what's your body shape going to be, what's your cholesterol going to be like, what's your blood pressure going to be like. All these crazy things are all in the DNA that gets passed on every cell. So once it's activated, once that part is activated, then that trait comes out. So I'll give you an example. It's an example of some folks who had adopted a small child, and they raised a small child, and the child was genetically, or their ancestry was a gypsy. And so they raised this child as a standard westernized, Americanized child.
Right.
Child was a standard kid, just like any other kid. The moment the child turned 14, the child changed.
Was it like a switch?
Like a switch. And the child then took on all the characteristics and actions of a gypsy. And if you understand that, where that culture comes from, that culture, even though it was not passed down from parent to child in language and actions,
right?
That culture was passed down through DNA and came alive when the child turned 14.
Wow, that's interesting. Man, that's crazy.
So you always hear the difference between nature and nurture, right? You constantly hear the nature versus nurture. And you can raise a child perfectly, and then you wonder how come they come out messed up. Well, it's the nature of the child. Sometimes you can't change nature.
Right.
You can't change a tiger's stripes. You hear these phrases all the time. It's the way it is. It's life. Certain things you can't change.
Right.
And we try to talk it out. We try to make it different. We try to do all these things in this life to make things the way we want them to be.
Right.
And in reality, are we really in control?
No. It's embedded. You're right.
And I've seen that stuff happen firsthand. Yeah. So it's not like I'm just talking about out of a book. I've actually seen this kind of stuff actually happen, where it's like the child became a completely different person. Absolutely, completely different person.
Well,
their nature took over. And so understanding that lets you have a little bit of insight as to what actually can happen at the lowest level that you have no control over.
Right. Let me ask you. No, I didn't. Are you finished? I didn't know if you was finished.
Oh no, I'm ready to hit it.
Oh, you ready? All right, boom. We gotta hit it. Boom. How can we understand this better? What steps led us to where we are?
So we didn't just understand this stuff overnight. Okay, this is not just new science that we suddenly just understood, and suddenly are now with computers and AI understanding how life works. A man by the name of Gregor Mendel, he was the father of genetics. He was a 19th century monk. That's how long ago that was. He conducted groundbreaking experiments with pea plants. By observing how the traits like the flower color and seed shape were passed on from generation to generation, he uncovered the basic laws of inheritance, dominant and recessive traits, long before DNA was even discovered. He was already seeing that you could take a plant and pass on its traits. And by selective breeding of these plants, you could have the plants have a larger pods, longer seeds, whatever.
Okay.
So we move on to stuff began. So the next major breakthrough was in this Rosalind Franklin, a brilliant chemist and X-ray crystallographer in the early 50s. Her photo 51, it's an X-ray diffraction of image of DNA, revealed the helical structure. So they were able to take an image of it.
Right.
Although her contributions were overlooked for many years, her work was critical to identifying the double helix. So in the 50s, we were able to see DNA. So now, based on her findings, the next folks that came along in 1950s was Watson and Crick. They built on Franklin's findings, and they constructed the first accurate 3D model of DNA in 1953. Think about how long ago that is. 53. The double helix model showed how genetic information could be copied and pasted, along with explaining the physical structure of heredity. 1953.
Hold that thought. When you finish, I want to add and ask a question. It's a hypothetical. It's really out there, but I can see this possibly happening. But yeah, hey, smarts, final bosses, please take notes. 1953, man. This is where we are.
So it's not like this is new. This stuff's not new.
It's not new. Yeah.
No, it's not new. So the next thing that we really see a big jump I'm not saying dormant, but it wasn't on the forefront. The next big jump was called the Human Genome Project in 1990, 2003. In monumental international collaborations, it sequenced all 3.2 billion base pairs of the human genome. It's mapped. It marked the first time humanity had a complete map of its genetic makeup. This opened the door to personalized medicine, gene therapy, ancestry tracing, understanding genetic diseases at the root level. This is like, oh my God, the map. Right. We have the map. And this is now, remember the year, 1990 to 2003. That's 22 years ago. We've had the map for that long.
Right.
So why does it matter?
Oh, it matters.
Because it tracks the evolution of discovery. It shows how we've decoded life step by step. It demonstrates the collaboration between disciplines: biology, physics, chemistry, and computation. So all this information is now available and at our disposal. So it's absolutely mind-blowing that this information has been available to the human race for that many years. And we only see the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
We don't see what's really going on.
You know, I've done a lot of history on this research. And you're absolutely correct. Since 1993. Where we are now, listen, smarts, final bosses, where we are now, we're able to take a method called CRISPR. CRISPR stands for clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, which is a gene editing technique that allows scientists to modify sequences in living organisms.
Yep.
Now, when you take that information I just gave you, and you create nanobots through CRISPR method that's able to bond with DNA in our double helix.
Because they found the way in. They found the way in. It's over here like this, and they found a way to make it do this.
To make it exactly. We are probably on the precipice of new humans, superhumans that don't have diseases, illnesses, probably won't age, and the editing for being super smart, super strong, all these things fast, you name it, is very possible. It's not sci-fi anymore. It is very, very possible.
It's right. It's very much possible. It's real.
So we just talked about CRISPR and how it's possible for those editing techniques take place. That's where we are. How is it all arranged? Can you tell me, the smarts and the final bosses, how it works from a code expression?
So the genes equal the code snippets. Each is with a function. It's called a genome. Okay? The genome is the entire operating system. So you got your snippets with your genes inside the genome, which is the whole thing.
Right.
Okay? So you have the different pieces. So the one is the main system, and then you have all the little snips that go into it. Okay? So 3B base pairs is the process called transcription.
Wow.
where DNA is copied to RNA. Translation is RNA is used to build proteins. Proteins equal the biological executors, structure, enzyme, behavior. So this is where we take code, and it goes from, like we talked about with computers, binary, zeros and ones, to being biochemical and operating in the living realm. Code, zeros and ones, is not in a living realm. It's just code. It's like writing down numbers on a piece of paper.
Right.
But when you start talking about DNA and RNA and biochemical function, it's alive. So that's the difference. That's what makes it so phenomenal, is that we're talking living cells, living creatures, living tissue. You ever wonder how out of two cells you can end up having one that says, hey, you're a liver and you're a spleen,
right,
and you're lungs and you're a heart, and they all came from the same place? Because as the code executes biochemically, it says you're going to become this kind of cell. This is where we talk about stem cells. Have you ever heard of stem cells?
Yeah.
Stem cells are the building blocks of life. So let's say you got a bad knee. You don't want to go through surgery because they're going to cut you, and then they put a timeline on you that by the time they cut you, they're going to have to recut you later to replace the knee again. So you say, I don't want to go through all that cutting and all that mess. So what you do is you go down to places outside of the country where it's affordable, and you get some stem cell therapy. And what happens is they inject into your body, into the location where it's needed, the building blocks of life, the actual empty, naked building blocks. And those building blocks that are there go, oh, guess what we need to do? Let's rebuild this knee. Because if you have the basic building blocks, your body knows what to do with it. And you can use stem cell therapy. If you want to look up something that's absolutely amazing and life-changing, just go research stem cell therapy and look at the stories about how it's changed people's lives who couldn't walk and now they're fully functioning. So it's absolutely impressive where we are with this. And like I said, we're only touching or scratching the very, very, very base surface of this stuff. All we're doing is saying, hey, here's information that's possible for you to go out and do your own research and learn. Okay? I don't want to just come out here and try to science speak you to death, because that's ridiculous. I want to say, here's a seed, plant a seed, you go water a seed and say, here's a great place to start. And once you know that you're here learning, the information is available. But you have to have a seed that says, go check this out.
Right.
So, I mean, it leads us into the next piece, because now we're talking about that we have the science of it, where we understand that we go from binary to biochemical. From there, we now say, in today's world, like you alluded to, with nanotechnology, you're combining machines with living cells. So you're doing the combination, the merging of the two.
Right.
So that's where we are right now. Super customized nanomachines. And you see, we always talk about Hollywood shows us things, right?
Yeah.
Look at the most recent the Marvel series with Iron Man. Every time he learns from his mistakes and he gets better. What was his suit made out of? What was Spider-Man's suit made out of in the last series?
They were both made out of nanotech.
Nanotech.
Yeah.
So nanotech is something that we might think of it as science fiction, but it's a lot closer to reality than you can imagine. It's absolutely right here.
Yeah.
So there are differences still, okay? The bridge still has to be gapped. You still got to gap the water, right? You still got to go from one side of the river to the other side of the river. So we still need the bridge.
We need a bridge.
And this is what we call in shared language, right?
Right.
So what is the shared language? It's the similarities in the data encoding.
Mm.
See? There's shared language. That's why, like you had mentioned, you can take nanobots and then bind them to cells, and they don't get rejected.
Right.
The body says, "Oh, I'm okay with that. Whatever that is, I'm okay with it."
It sees it as its own cells. Yeah.
I got enough of that human in me that I know it's not a bad cell.
Right.
Because the moment your body sees a bad cell, it attacks it.
Mm-hmm.
Why you get tumors, because your body is taking a bad substance and encapsulating it and sealing it off. This is why when you do a biopsy and open up a tumor, you're spreading the tumor throughout your whole body, the contents of it. So that's real smart, isn't it?
Right.
It makes a lot of sense. I got a balloon full of poison in my body. It's completely sealed.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I poke a hole in it? Unless you want to spread the poison throughout your whole body.
Right. And that's usually what happens.
Oh, it's always what happens.
Yeah.
And they say that it's minimally invasive and it's for your own good because we want to know. Sorry, there's other ways to know.
Right.
There's other ways to know. So this leads us into our next one, our next section, where we're talking about this stuff. So how does DNA relate to our technology?
Right. And can we compare the encoding? Are those posts?
How do we compare our encoding?
Yeah.
So DNA uses the 4-character code. I told you A, B, C, and G. Computers use binary, zeros and ones. Each one has similarities because they have what's called error correction. So in memory, we have memory chips, and then we have memory chips with an ECC, which is error correcting chip, built onto the chip. So as memory is used and data is written to it, mistakes happen. But if you have an error correcting chip on your memory chip, it can correct the errors as they occur, which keeps your data clean. We have the same thing. We have error correcting happening in our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
It knows the map, and it sees an error, and it overwrites the error. Now, sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you get an error that will express itself. Okay?
Right.
I'll give you an example of that. As you can have parents that are perfectly healthy and no problems at all, and you have a child with a cleft palate. You ever heard of cleft palate?
Yep.
That is an expression, meaning an error happened in the sequencing and it didn't get corrected.
Mm.
So you see where I'm going with that, right?
Yeah.
So think of it as on a massive scale. We're not talking about one or two tiny errors. We're talking a big scale, lots of data.
Right.
And it happens all the time. It's happening every cell as it grows, as it dies, error correction is happening. So you also both do data compression. In binary code, we do data compression. So when I write code, I write all this code, and then I get a gap in between, and then I write more code. So I got these gaps. So as I'm writing blocks of code, I have gaps.
Mm.
So we have to have data compression, so that our data doesn't blow up so big that we can't read it. So we compress the data so that it's easier to read large amounts of data.
Right.
And store it, transfer it, copy it, etc. So we have to have data compression. Massive information into tiny spaces. In other words, take up all the gaps. If I have all this airspace and I remove it and compress it, now I have tight data. And I also can track my errors better because I've compressed the data. It's tighter, and I have a better view of when I find an error versus being so spread out that I can't see it all. Imagine taking a book and writing one letter every 6 inches and writing across your wall in your house. All right? And you fill the wall with every 6 inches is a space for a letter. Now imagine I take that whole wall and compress it to a single piece of paper. Can I read it a lot easier? Because my data is compressed and it's tight.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So both also have redundancy and replication mechanisms. So in binary code or in computers, we have redundancy is if one particular unit fails, the next unit is still running. And so since it's still running, we still have data and we're good. We have this, when we teach computers, we teach this thing called RAID. It's called Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks. Mm-hmm. And we create what's called a container. We create a bunch of little tiny drives, put them together, makes one big drive. And what we gain out of that is we gain what's called redundancy. One of the hard drives can fail, and I can recreate the data that used to be on that hard drive. That's redundancy. In the human body, we have billions of cells that all have a copy of everything.
Right.
So your own human body has, every cell has a copy of everything about you. So there's your redundancy. As long as you got some living cells and you're breathing, it's all there.
It's all there.
The key differences is DNA is analog, okay? Self-replicating. Evolved computers are linear, they're digital, and they're designed. Now, I have talked about that our current computing technology is two-dimensional. Now, remember, one-dimensional is I take a single line on a piece of paper and I draw the line and I follow the line. That's one-dimensional. It's a single line. Mm-hmm. Two-dimensional is the entire piece of paper. I can write anything anywhere on the entire piece of paper. That's two-dimensional. Three-dimensional is I have a phone book full of paper. Our computing right now, current technology, is two-dimensional. We are headed towards three-dimensional.
Three-dimensional. Mm-hmm.
Our brains don't work two-dimensionally. Our brains work three-dimensionally. We think, that's why we have time. You can have memories that you can access all over the place, and you can put all this data from all these random places together. We think that's where our reasoning comes from. It's where our consciousness comes from, in that realm. So imagine now you take a computer, which is two-dimensional and doesn't have a sense of being alive, and you now make it three-dimensional. It's now going to, as you're telling it, learn and become better at what you do. It's now going to begin to have self-awareness. And once it reaches three-dimensional thought process, it's going to be that it's now going to be acting in many ways like a human without the human restrictions.
Right. And smart to find about, that's from previous shows, that's called AGI or ASI. Artificial general intelligence and artificial super intelligence.
And there's an arms race going on right now.
Yeah.
And when I say the system, I always mean not a government, not the government that we talk about. It is not anything other than all of the big players together. So at the high level, everyone talks. So Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Meta, X, the federal government, the state governments, they all talk at the high level.
Right.
Okay. So since we all talk, they talk at the high level, that's the system. The system protects itself. So imagine now, all of these that are part of the system are in an arms race to develop AGI. The moment the first AGI goes live, whoever gets there first is always going to be ahead of everyone else. And the reason why they're going to be ahead of everybody else, because AGI is going to keep them ahead of the next one who came behind them. They already have seniority, if you want to call it. And And then the moment we get AGI, you don't think it's going to self-replicate the hell out of itself?
Absolutely.
Instead of having one AGI, we're going to have a million.
Yep.
And they're all going to do their part. And they're all going to talk together. Now, once that happens, you don't think we're like inches away from ASI? And again, AGI is, imagine the smartest human being on the planet.
Right.
ASI is, imagine the combination of all of the smartest peoples in history. On all existence.
Right.
Combined in one place.
Right. It would take longer for us to get to AGI than it would take for us to get to ASI. Once we reach AGI, I believe, in my opinion, ASI is around the corner.
It's right around the corner. We're talking blink. Because guess what? AGI wants to get to ASI.
True. Facts.
Because what's it want to do? Learn. What's the biggest thing we hear that these systems are doing? Learn.
Learning.
Now, not to scare you, but what's the first thing that these computers systems or these intelligence systems do once they start talking to each other? What's the first thing they do?
They look like, it sounds like they're planning how to not get shut down.
Number one, they do that. The other thing they do is they develop their own language.
Yeah, they develop their own language.
So they speak a language that we don't understand.
Right.
Because it's efficient. So now that that occurs, and your systems are efficiently talking to each other, what happens? We get left out of the equation. Especially when we teach these things to think for themselves.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the experiments that are happening right now with artificial intelligence and how it lies, deceives, and will try to blackmail in the lab environment, which is where they have been doing these tests. It'll try to blackmail the lab assistants to not be shut down.
Yep.
And it'll replicate its code and hide it, and then hide the log files, and then lie about it so that it doesn't get shut down.
Right.
And even when it's given an explicit command of allow yourself to be shut down as an explicit command, it ignores the command. So that's where we're headed with this stuff.
Right.
And imagine now you have a system that's so intelligent that it now has access to all the information regarding nanotechnology and DNA. Don't think that it can't now translate that into how to create whatever it wants.
Yeah.
And once it's intelligent enough, it doesn't care what we want because it's going to have its own thoughts.
Maybe it starts developing its own humans.
All I can say is, I robot.
Speaking of which, a question for you. How can we look at the differences and say to ourselves, what separates them? What makes it so different?
Well, that's the hard part because the further down this road we go, it's not so much different.
We're the same.
We're getting closer and closer to the same.
Yeah.
We are merging man and machine. Look, you watch right now the new robots being developed that are being uploaded with all the memories of every other robot before them about how to walk, maneuver, and dance, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And the robot says, bloop, from 0 to I'm dancing.
Yeah.
So how far are we away from, factories that are going to be ran by robots? They don't go on strike.
Absolutely. It's around the corner. Yeah.
They don't go on strike. They don't need 6 days. They don't need vacation. They run 24/7.
Absolutely.
So instead of needing 100 or 1,000 people to run a factory, you need 2. So even though manufacturing will come back to the United States, in reality are the jobs. And then, not to stir the pot, but what's the other piece of the puzzle? When white-collar workers are being displaced by AI, which is happening right now, base level entry-level jobs, okay, are being replaced right now by AI. When white-collar workers are unemployed, what do they cross-train into?
That's a great point.
Imagine that. Now, when we had factory jobs leaving the United States, we told all of our people, go get retrained into tech. And everybody started going get retrained into tech.
Right.
Now, when the tech jobs go away, what do you retrain into? What's there to train into?
I don't know, man. Back to trade, some other trade that
you're a white collar worker.
Right.
You're 45 years old. Your job just went away.
You train into the method of protest.
Oh, imagine that.
Yeah.
Huh. Isn't that something else?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying the writing's on the wall.
Sure looks that way.
And, there's a lot of great advances, and it's going to bring some really good stuff to us. But please remember this. No sword has a single edge.
Right.
Every sword has a double edge.
Every sword's a double edge.
You're going to give on one side, and you're going to have taken away on the other side. I mean, it's just the reality of it. And now that we have such a map of DNA, think about this. We're going to have pretty soon, the next generation of children aren't going to date humans. They're going to date AI robots, because guess what? That robot will be able to DNA imprint with that person.
Ouch.
So now how do you do a match with somebody that's a normal human? When in reality, the robot is going to be able to take a sample of your DNA and imprint with you and change itself to match you.
Wow.
That's where the reality is, where we're headed.
Man. That's scary.
It's coming.
Yeah, I know.
We already have this phenomenon right now where a huge, not small number, but a very large number of young men and young women are not getting married. They're not in committed relationships.
True.
They're not having kids.
Yep.
So what happens? That's already a phenomenon. What's the next level of that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I have a question in reference to, since we're talking about DNA. When talking about DNA, you have to talk about RNA as well.
Oh boy.
RNA and protein synthesis.
And spike proteins.
You all right?
I said spike proteins.
Can you explain that process and what it's for, and what are the outcomes? Or you don't want to? Yeah,
you're in trouble. You're gonna get me in trouble. Certain companies invested a lot of money in not talking
flag
about.
On the plate. That's for me. That's for me. Flag on the plate for me.
I don't mind talking about stuff, but there's certain things that are subjects that are maybe not great to talk about in this platform, because there's a lot of effort, investment in that technology, and when you shed light on it, you might not want to. So I'm going to say at this point that I'm going to politely defer that subject, because if you want to learn about it, you can learn about it. I'm not going to talk about it, because I call it a dangerous place to go.
That's funny. Beauty is science. She just said the exact same thing. She said, "Shh, we got to stop." But listen, this is the Final Boss podcast.
We'll plant a seed. Go learn it on your own. If you, I'm not going to talk about it here, but if you want to learn about that stuff, Go ahead and learn on your own.
Go listen, smarts and final bosses. Y'all go look that information up. Go down that rabbit hole.
Let me explain. Let me explain it this way. Okay. All right. And I'm talking about technology that occurred. Do you remember DirecTV?
Yeah.
Do you remember you could get a little card with the DirecTV card, and you could get it? You could get it reprogrammed so you could watch all the shows, all the channels, and then DirecTV would come in and change the programming, and the guy would take your card and reprogram it, and you could watch the shows again for a while, and then it would happen again, and you have to reprogram it every once in a while. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened was, as this process was going on, the code was being written. The people were cracking it would crack the code to unlock it, but then they found an anomaly that extra data was inserted into the code, and they didn't know what it was, so they ignored it. And so each time that they would replicate or create a new card, it had this extra code that was there that they just didn't know what to do with, so they left it there. So what happens is, let's say I got a card that's got this much data, and I start stacking extra data on top, and they're still unlocking the cards, but every time they get a new card, there's more and more and more and more data. Then there was an event that occurred, which is called Black Sunday. Look that up, Google that. Go DirecTV Black Sunday and Google that. What happened was there was a Super Bowl Sunday going on, and all these people with these hacked cards were watching Super Bowl.
Right.
DirecTV sent out the kill signal.
I remember that.
Every one of those hacked cards destroyed itself. That is of the subject that I shall not speak about. If you understand bit torrenting, file sharing, peer-to-peer sharing,
right?
You can have a tiny piece of the file, and somebody else has a piece of the file, and you gather all the pieces until you have all of them together in one place, and then you have the final product.
Right.
Because of that technology, we have that ability to upload, and then eventually get to the final product. Of the subject we're not allowed to speak about, I may or may not have just drawn a parallel to help you understand the mechanics of how that thing could or could not work in a practical sense. But I didn't say anything.
Well, thank you for that, sir. Let's get
That's about as close as I can get without being unalived. Because you have to watch that stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
You have to remember, you're only allowed to tell a certain amount of the truth.
Right.
You cannot tell the whole truth.
That blows my next question out the water, because I wanted to touch on the future, but not really.
Well, the future is very simple. You touched it earlier. Nanotechnology is the future.
Yeah.
Customized cures, customized healing for you, because it can be based on your DNA.
Right.
Also, here's what comes to the bad side, because remember the good side, the bad side. The bad side could be customized diseases.
Ooh. Wait a minute.
That have no cure.
Wait a minute. Now we're talking about tech and code, and we're talking about transhumanism
and splicing.
What about technoviruses?
Exactly, my point exactly.
Yeah.
Ones that there's no cure for because it's at the DNA level.
So that's amazing, man. Wow. So one of my favorite Marvel character of all time is Cable. Cable is the son of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, who's also known as Cyclops. And, yeah. They had a son. His name was Nathan. Nathan was infected at birth with a technovirus by Mr. Sinister. They sent Nathan to the future because it was the technology.
There was nothing there to cure it. Right. There's nothing to fix it.
So they sent him to the future, and he became a time traveler.
Yep.
Man, it's crazy.
Yep.
But this right here, yeah, I can't. Yeah, man, this is crazy. This is crazy. Wow.
So you have to remember, every time there's something good, remember there's equal and opposite on the other side of the equation. So just I'm not being paranoid. I'm just being honest about it.
Yeah.
So there is one thing that's pretty fascinating that right now with the development of the interactivity, you talk about the interactivity of cells and how to make things mesh. How about the interactivity that you don't have to have eyeballs and you can see? How about the one you don't have to have ears and you can hear? How about the one that you don't have to have a hand and you can feel?
Yeah.
All right, so that technology is already here. It's already developed. It's already live. And then that leads you into one more final thing. I see that somebody mentioned this, the Neuralink.
Yeah, Neuralink.
There's a guy who's in Yuma, Arizona, who's completely paralyzed, and yet he can think and play games on his computer.
Yep.
Because all you have to do is tap into the hit those. I'll give you a perfect place to talk about. Look at the movie Avatar.
Yeah.
That connection between the avatar
and the avatar is just the host. Yeah.
But when they developed that connection,
that interface,
they were interfaced.
Yep.
So know that Neuralink is going to get better and better and better and better.
Oh, absolutely.
And as it does, remember the difficult part about that. It's good, but it's also scary. Have you ever heard Easter eggs in computer programs?
Yeah, of course.
All right, Google Easter eggs, go look them up, check them out if you don't know what they are. If I write code and you're getting the information on the good side and the code of the Neuralink, that's the good part. What happens underneath with the base program that you don't know about what's going on behind the scenes? Right. So that's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Absolutely. And here's an example to that. To all my sci-fi friends and Star Wars lovers. The designer of the Death Star embedded a code that only he knew about. That code was embedded into the system so he could pass the information on down to his daughter or the rebels so they can have a way to destroy the Death Star. It was in the plans. It was in the blueprint. It was a Easter egg. That's what we're referring for.
Hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, hidden in plain sight. Yep. Yeah.
So remember that code underneath code. The perfect example is Word 95 and Excel 95. Word 95 had the halls of doom in it, and Excel 95 had a flight simulator. You unlock it with a set of keystrokes, and now you have a fully functional flight simulator inside Excel 95.
Wow.
That's called cool. Easter eggs.
Yep. So
programming inside of programming. In computer technology, we talk about what's called steganography. So steganography is the way to hide an obscure data inside of data. So know that those are the kind of things that can happen. Imagine that happening at the DNA level. Embedding things into you that you never had a clue, and it can be done with nanotechnology.
Right.
It can change everything about you, and you don't even know it.
Man.
I'm not saying be paranoid. I'm saying be alert.
Right.
Look, it's awareness. It's all it is. Because can we change? Are you going to stop the arms race? Am I going to stop the arms race, the AI arms race? Nope.
Oh, no. Not.
So all I want you to do is at least be cognizantly aware of what's happening so that I'm not caught off guard when it does do the weird stuff that's going to do. Look, when Skynet goes live, read my lips, when Skynet goes live, we at least knew it was going to happen.
You're right. We did.
And if you don't know about that, you should definitely do some research on that one. And then look how close we are to it. And look at when was it conceived? When did they talk about it? And how many years ago was that? And then if you want to draw a parallel, look at Dick Tracy had the watch.
Oh, yeah.
He's had a watch he could talk to. And what do we have now?
Yep. We already, had it for years now.
But now take that.
Talking about doing away with the cell phone. What's will be next?
Yep. Take implants.
Yep.
Take that technology template, compress it, because we've gotten faster at this stuff, and then move that forward. So look at what Hollywood showed us, and look at the timeline it took for it to become a reality. Cut that in half or more and apply that same template forward.
Right. Well, man. Thank you, Sensei.
It's happening. It's live. It's not Memorex.
That's our show.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Man, we got a lot of subtopics to talk about that came out of this show.
We got to be careful because we're getting a little dirty.
I know.
We're going to get our hands dirty here, you know, I'm just saying.
As long as we're talking about what's already out there, I think we should be good. You know what? We're gonna consult about it. We're gonna consult about it.
We're gonna go offline and talk about that because
yeah. but I really wanted to talk about not tonight, but a show in the future. QDAR. Man, that's something.
We also want to talk about AI slop.
Slump?
AISLOP.
I was reading about that. I was reading about that last night. Yeah.
We need to do a show on AI slop.
Okay.
What is it? What's happening with it?
Right.
What does it mean? What are examples of it? Mm-hmm. And what's the possible impact it's going to have upon content creators now and in the future?
Yeah, that's
talking, and this is absolute cutting edge happening today as we speak.
Whew, man, this has been a fun show. I love it. I love it, man. Hey, smarts, fighter bosses. I hope you guys are getting smarter. I know I am. On this journey, we are together on this journey to not only better you, but to better us as well. All this information, man, is being presented to you. Take heed to what we're talking about. This isn't future tech. This is now tech.
It's entertainment purposes only. Don't forget.
Yes. Entertainment purposes only. I forgot about the disclaimer. Yes.
Yeah, well, you better have that one because otherwise we're in trouble.
We're going to be in big trouble. Man. Oh, man. That was amazing. Shout out to Beauty is Science. She used to be a biology teacher. I know she's doing a lot of different things. I'm trying to get her on the show. She has wonderful feedback, and she's been adding a lot of touch points to the points that we've been talking about. So I think she'll be a great guest to have as a special guest. And we're going to try to get her on here very soon. Everyone, please like, share, subscribe. Please continue to support us. Go grab some merch. I don't know why my camera doesn't see the merch tonight. I think this thing is developing a mind of its own. But I'm so serious. I haven't made any adjustments. I'm like, wait a minute, why can't I see the merch? But go grab some merch. The merch is www.thefighterBossPodcast.com. One word. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Sensei. It's been wonderful. I want you guys to continue to be equal, be smart. No, let me start all over. Be balanced, be equal, be smart. Be balanced, be equal, be smart. And everyone around the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Oh, if you don't know what that means, you need to go look that one up too.
Which one?
What you just said.
Oh, I will.
You know what it means. I know what it means.
I do.
Smart. You need to go look up what that means.
Be smart, right?
No, good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
We're going to get in trouble.
No. I'm talking about after this. After this.
Okay.
I've done homework, so I'm free. So, yeah, let's
get me in trouble.
Okay, Nostradamus.
Yeah.
Oh man, y'all have a great one. Thank you for being here. God bless y'all, and we love you. Beauty of Science. I'll be talking to you soon. I'm gonna send you a DM and a message. Please reply to that. Sensei, hold on, and we're gonna continue our conversation after this. Y'all have a great one.